All right.
Hey.
So this episode is actually brought to our listeners by Podcorn. www.podcorn.com. I initially, went to Google and I was like, hey, I really want to find some sponsors for the podcast. So I went to Google and the first thing that popped up was Podcorn. And I was like, I wonder what that is. Weird. Podcorn. Okay. And then I go and I find our podcast because they have all the podcasts listed. And it was super easy. I just plugged and played. I plugged in who we were, where our demographics were, what our numbers were, and they match you with sponsors.
Yep.
So
it's really cool.
It is super cool. And luckily enough, the first person who sponsored us was Podcorn, the website itself.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah.
Such a cool
And it's like
website.
the easiest platform that I think I've ever found when it comes to asking people for money.
For sure. No kidding. Well, and what I love about it too is the second you log in, obviously it's going to bring up a whole reel of potential sponsors, but it's super, super easy. You just click and then you can read, is this somebody that I want to pursue or that I would want to partner with?
Yes.
And then you record, you send, and then
that's it.
They connect.
So if you guys have a podcast or somebody who has a podcast who wants to monetize, i.e. make some money, definitely send them to Podcorn.
Definitely.
And it's, again, www.podcorn.com.
Cool. Hi, this is Big Girl Pants Podcast,
where we talk about women, health, power, and wealth.
Hosted by
April Melton
and Kimberly Shapiro.
We are real women with real jobs doing real life.
Join us while we showcase inspirational stories and inspirational people.
Come on, y'all. Put your big girl pants on and stay tuned.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm great.
We've actually been having the best conversation pre-recording. And
I think
just to keep it organic, we should just continue. We'll give a little bit of a backstory about who you are and why you're here.
And then we'll just jump right back into
and then
that.
We're just going back into it.
I want to know.
And then in the middle of the episode, we'll just completely focus right on you. So for the listeners, I want you to pronounce your last name because I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah, I'm Gabrielle Bosche.
Bosche.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. So fancy.
Super French.
I am super creepy, and I just DM'd you on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my God, I love your story. Will you come on my podcast? And that is why you're here. But actually, before we hit record on this episode, we've been talking about weddings because Shapiro's daughter recently got married, and we started talking about the price and all this stuff. And we were talking about.
Then we got to her wedding.
I know. And we got to your wedding and your friend's wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She stayed in a haunted hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we were. Dun, dun, dun.
So we should
now we're getting
continue
the details.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was in Virginia.
Yeah,
Where
so
in
it was my
Virginia?
best friend's wedding a few months ago during COVID because everything was really small.
Oh, it was your friend's wedding.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, and so mine wasn't haunted.
Yours was in DC though, yeah.
But yes, and so my best friend's wedding was haunted 2 months ago. And so we had people in the house who were being woken up by ghosts being like, hi, hi, hi. One of the guys there, his Oura ring was stolen. He's like, I swear I couldn't find it, the sleep tracking ring.
Yeah. And it's a really heavy, it looks like a wedding band, but
Yeah, apparently they need to track their sleep. One of the ladies who was helping us cater everything was playing music and the ghost kept turning it on and off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, you said somebody was washing dishes, or
washing
dishes.
they saw people washing dishes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was,
at least they were tidy.
it was just a wedding. The wedding itself was just stressful kind of anyway, but then you're like, great, ghosts on top of the wedding and trying to coordinate everything else.
Yes,
So-
and plan and decorate and set stuff out. What if they're moving stuff while you're setting stuff out?
Crazy.
It was a crazy affair, but she got married. She looked beautiful. It all worked out. But yeah,
Love
what
it.
a mess.
So did they know that the place was haunted before
They didn't advertise it on Airbnb. Maybe they should.
They
I think that
definitely
there's
should.
definitely a niche.
Definitely calling you out, Airbnb. And to continue on the wedding track too, I actually want to backtrack and talk about your wedding a little bit because I mentioned that we want to either have a party or something for Matt and I when we do decide to do that. But you were super scrappy and resourceful when you got married. So you got married in DC.
Yes.
How long ago was this?
I should know this. I love you, Brian. I love you. No, I'm legit the most unromantic person. Our song will come on and I'm like, that's mildly familiar. And my husband's like,
God,
that's
our song.
our
This is
my
wedding
kindred
song.
spirit
How
over
could
here.
you not? How could you not know that this is like our song?
I know. It's kind of the worst. We strategically got married on my husband's parents' anniversary because I knew they would remember. So he totally is like,
I love it. My
forget
husband and I have
anything.
to pull out our certificate every once in a while
To look at it?
Is it the 30th or the 31st?
Yeah.
We never can
I
remember.
lost mine. I lost my wedding certificate legit the week after. And I had to go back to the court and say, and they were like, didn't you just come in and do this? I said, yeah, I lost it.
Yes,
so just let's
whatever.
reissue
That's great.
Can I get
another
a copy or what do we got?
Literally, I was like, this is kind of, well, I remember when I was changing my name, which that's a whole, situation.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different apps out there that you can use, like Miss to Mrs. or.
Oh, that's nice. So they take you down the list.
Yeah, they just send you a box of all of the things that you need to sign to change your name. Yeah, I'm
Nice.
such a millennial that I was like, is there an app for this?
Yes.
So it turns out that there is.
Simplify my life, please.
Yeah, so there's some really cool ones. I don't remember all of them. And so when I was doing that, everyone was really excited about me getting married except the airlines. So every time I called the airlines, I'd say, hey, I'd like to change my name. And American Airlines, most of them, JetBlue, Southwest, all of that, they're like, yeah, congrats, no problem. American Airlines were like, hey, yeah, can you fax us a copy of your marriage certificate? And I legit laughed because I was like, what year is this? I don't own a fax machine. I don't
know anyone who does.
I don't have paper. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I just remember being on the other line with this woman, and clearly she was a mom because she went into like mom solving mode. And she's like, okay, are you by a FedEx?
Right.
Okay, go to the UPS store. Like, you can go and you can fax it there, and then, wear a sweater, and like, it's okay, call me later. Like, she just went into like trying to help this poor.
It's chilly outside.
Yeah.
Don't forget, okay? It's supposed to rain at 3:00.
Exactly. And so I just remember like putting her on speakerphone, putting her on mute, and then downloading a fax app.
Yeah.
And then just taking her off mute. And I said,
yeah.
hey, I just sent it to you. And she's like, what did you do? I said, I downloaded an app. And all I heard was, you're a millennial, aren't you?
Yes,
like,
I am.
I've
Yes, I am.
invaded.
Hey, we
Yeah, I
can
love
teach you
it.
some things, okay?
Yeah,
Just
that's
so
I was
you
like,
know.
there's an app for faxing. And she's like, thanks.
Oh my gosh.
So cool. Well, let's talk about you so everybody knows all the coolest things that you have done and are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
so
the things.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an author, speaker, recently relocated to Dallas-ish a year ago,
Yeah.
which has been kind of fun. And so I run a company called The Purpose Company with my hubby, Brian. We've been married almost 6 years. I just had to think about that. I think it's in November, 6 years happily. And yeah, so we help people find their purpose and really step into their potential. We focus a lot on people who are kind of in transition or want to be in transition, who recognize that, life isn't turning out how I thought I wanted it to.
Right.
I want to make an impact. And, I feel like I can't move forward and I need to give myself permission to.
And when did you write your book?
I've written 6.
Okay.
So
Well, there's the most recent
the
one.
most recent one came out in October.
And that's The Purpose.
Wow.
The Purpose Factor. Yeah.
So how did you at the ripe old age,
Of 32.
32 and earlier, even if you've written 6 books, how did you find your purpose so soon?
Yeah, it's a sad, pathetic story of a very tall, redheaded girl. No, I'm kidding. But seriously.
Self-deprecation is also my forte.
Yeah, no, it's my love language, actually. I was talking to someone.
There's 6 of them if you didn't know.
I was talking to someone about this the other day where we were talking about making friends when you're older. And I
Right.
said, yeah, obviously the group gets smaller and smaller. But I said, at this point, if you don't make fun of yourself, if you're not self-deprecating in any kind of way, we can't be friends. Literally. I was like, if you have it all together or pretend like you have it all together, we have
Pretend
nothing
is
to
the
talk
key word
about.
there.
None of us do.
Nobody has it all
We're
together.
all a shit show.
I'm like, just embrace it.
Yes.
Embrace it. So at 17, I wrote my first book.
Okay.
And, but legit, it was because I was 17. I had more braces than teeth. I was really kind of awkward. And I just was really good at writing. And so I just started writing this book about millennials. And because I saw so many people complaining about millennials.
Yeah.
And I was like, we can't suck that bad.
Yeah.
And I just have always been really passionate about my generation because I saw that we were really unique and really justice oriented. Like no one was really telling us to care about these things, but
Yeah.
we just naturally kind of did. And so that journey kind of turned me into this millennial expert kind of accidentally, just writing and speaking about millennials for a number of years. But through it, I found my purpose, which for me, I had this moment where I felt like I wasn't really allowed to. Where I was waiting for permission for someone, I call it the purpose fairy,
Yeah.
to come around and say, you're allowed to do things.
Yes.
And I think a lot of
A
times,
lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, they do.
I think most of us do.
Yeah.
And I think our society kind of encourages us to do it. Like, do these things and then your life's going to turn out.
Right.
And then you wake up and you're like, crap.
We have talked about this a few times. It's like there's all these milestones that we have to go through, and all the boxes that we have to check. And then people wake up, they're 40 years old, they went to college, they got the great job, they got married, they had the kids, and now they're like, why I did all the things everybody told me to do.
Why do I still feel so unfulfilled?
Yeah.
I know. The checking it off the list, which, like, girl, I was so good at checking stuff off the list.
Yeah. Right.
I'm a super achiever. So it's like you give me something and I'm like, great, when can I get it done? Is there an app for it? I'm going to track it.
Right.
Okay. And then I'm going to report on it. So it became a bit of an issue. It's just like, yeah, it's my life. Yeah. Like I put stuff on checklists that I've already done just because I'm like, way to go, Gab. You totally took care of that. It's like
words of affirmation for myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If no one else is going to do it, I might as well.
Might as well
Right?
pat yourself on the back.
I know. Sometimes I'm like the best. You just got to handle it. Sometimes because pre-COVID, we were speaking all around the world. And so I'd be speaking on stages and half the time I'd just be telling jokes,
Right.
Which I would just be laughing at. And like the rest of the audience is just looking at me. Maybe they're laughing. It
They're
really
like, are you
doesn't
funny
matter.
or are
It
you
doesn't matter.
inspiring?
I'm like, yeah.
What is
You're
it?
like, I think I'm funny, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I actually like that about
My husband
you.
and I talk a lot about kind of the internal voices. His internal voices of like, you can do better, push harder, keep going. Mine is like, oh my gosh, you did so good. Like you are so cute right now.
Yours is like your Bessie and your mom combined.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
like,
That's so
Absolutely.
great, man.
Which it totally is because my mom is like that. My mom, Marilyn, I call them Marilynisms. Like she's just like, you are the best. You are just so great at
love
this.
you. You're just so wonderful.
So I
Love it.
definitely listen to that part. But I think part of it is how you were raised, where I think you're either proving someone right or proving someone wrong
Yes.
based off of how you were raised.
Yeah.
And I was raised with parents that were like, you can do anything. That's amazing. You're interested in something. Let's push you, which is a two-edged sword because I think that you have overconfidence in things where it's like, maybe she's not good at it.
Also, maybe she
shouldn't do
sucks,
that.
you know? Yeah.
Which I definitely did. Someone should have told me that, like, stop singing. But I just kept at it because I was like,
They said I was good.
Yeah, I'm
so
like,
I must
But my
be
mom
good.
said I could do anything.
yeah, I took it quite literally. And then my husband on the other side is, had parents that were like, yeah, probably not. Be more, be more realistic.
maybe.
Right.
And so he's very competitive, like trying to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, like the internal dialogue that we accept as truth based off of a lot of the kind of unconscious ways that our parents parented us.
100%. That's literally that's my exact relationship. His parents weren't like not encouraging, but they were just kind of like more realistic, like middle of the road. They're like, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mine were like, my mom's like 100%. You can do whatever you want. Oh my God, you could be a millionaire. Michael Dell didn't go to college. Zuckerberg didn't even finish Harvard. You could be an entrepreneur. You can make millions of dollars. I'm like, I love you, Mom. You're the best. But also, I'm probably not very good at that. But it's okay.
I know. Love our moms.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm using the Sandler training for my team.
Yeah.
It's a sales training technique, and one of the things that he talks about is no matter what you're doing in life when you're selling, your mom is always on your shoulder. So he's like, okay, so you and your mom, like everything he prefaces is you and your mom, because the baggage that we carry into our adulthood stems from.
And I love, have you ever heard of Sandler, like the sales training? So
Absolutely.
I love the part of Sandler where it dissects everything into a certain like, what do they call it? Like rebellious child or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I love how they break that down to where they're like, this is
Transactional analysis.
Yes,
Yeah.
the TA.
Yeah.
I hate saying that though because I always think of a sexual context when I say that.
That's weird.
Like tits and ass.
Okay, well.
100%. The TA though, is just like, you're either coming from that rebellious child point, like you said, like either you're proving someone right or you're proving someone wrong, or you have that like responsible adult or the dictator or whatever. I can't remember the other one.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's so funny. And then I just think about where am I coming from right now? Where is this coming from? Why do I feel like I have to do this? Or why do I feel this way? Or whatever.
exactly.
The trigger is huge. And for me, a lot of it came from recognizing birth order.
Yeah.
And so I started studying birth order when I became an entrepreneur. So my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad has never, neither of my parents went to college or finished college. My dad has never had a boss. He's always owned his own companies. And so I grew up staying with my parents at their business. So they owned restaurants and then they got into the construction roofing space.
Okay.
And I just remember saying, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to come home early from vacation because we couldn't make payroll and then have to be, I was the last person picked up from school because my mom was working and falling asleep in their warehouse. And I was like, what's the opposite of that?
Right. I want the
government.
normal.
And so I worked for the government for years. Literally, I think my family was like, okay, she went a little far because I was like, I had like the pension, I had like
I
everything.
want the exact opposite of everything that you guys are doing.
Exactly. And I did it for 2 years and woke up and was like, I'm doing this because I wanted to change the world.
Right.
But I felt like I was more of the problem than
literally
the solution.
just a cog in the wheel of the machine.
I was like, what am I doing?
How do I make an impact here?
I know. And so when I finally called my parents up and I was like, I want to start this business. And at the first business I started, I was 23 and I was consulting major companies and firms around millennial engagement because I was really the only millennial talking about millennials who was a millennial.
Right.
And so they were like, oh, there's this new thing where we're trying to understand what's wrong with them. And it's all these old men telling other old men about what's wrong with us. Just the narrative wasn't great. So I came into the mix and was working with a lot of kind of major brands that you would all like know and buy, like Audi and Microsoft and Google and stuff. And so just that journey of starting my business was interesting, even talking to my parents about it, because they were all like, yeah, of course. Like it's this inevitable thing that you should start a business. And I remember talking to my mom, trying to get some information like, okay, well, like, what do I do with all these receipts? I feel like I should keep all of them. And I talk about this in one of my books, The Millennial Entrepreneur, because as I'm starting this company, I'm studying how I'm starting this company. I'm like, why is it different than other generations? I call my mom up. She's like, just put it in a shoebox. Just kind of put it, and then you give it to your accountant at the end of the year.
You're like,
that's wrong generation.
That's
read my book.
Like, I do not want to get audited. Okay. So anyway, then I downloaded an app called Shoebox, and I kept all of my receipts that way.
And I took pictures of them with my phone.
Exactly. And
so
it's just
do you mind me
funny.
asking, did you go to college?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's your background?
My sister and I are the first people in our family to go to college. So my sister graduated a semester earlier than me. Again, I'm extremely competitive.
Are you the first?
I'm the baby. And so I really wanted to beat
I would have
her.
pegged you as firstborn.
Totally.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a problem. Yeah. But anyway, we were talking about birth order, and that's what made me think about it was and I'll wrap up to kind of what I studied. But I started studying birth order because I'm a very strong, loud, redheaded person. But I'd go into these business meetings and I would be very shy and I would just have this little sister syndrome. And it got so bad where I was like, what in the world? And in certain situations, I just would totally change my personality. Part of that is I'm a rejection overcomer. So I was raised in an alcoholic household. And so when you have trauma like that, you fit yourself into the scenario that is going to have the least amount of negative impact.
Yeah, right.
So you're the calm one, you're the chameleon, you know how to make other people laugh, you know how to get out of the way.
Have you ever listened to Whitney Cummings?
Yes.
Yeah, love her.
Yeah.
It's like I'm listening to her right now.
Yeah, she turned me actually on to a lot of the Al-Anon stuff. And so I've been going through the Big Red Book, which has been really, really helpful in understanding triggers because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so me. Oh my gosh, that's so me.
I know, it's so refreshing.
It's like, reading your mail. But I studied, not related at all to what I do now, which is, again, the story of most of us.
Right.
I studied politics and religion in my undergrad. So it's like the things that you're not supposed to talk about at Thanksgiving. I was like, I want to get 2 degrees in those, please. So I
take 2. Thank you.
I'm so fascinated by, number one, your age and your confidence.
And drive.
Well, more so that obviously that, but the confidence to walk into an organization and sell yourself as a consultant
at 23.
At 23,
I know.
When
Where'd
most
you get
people
those
at
balls?
23
I need some of those.
don't. They just don't even have the capacity to sell themselves.
Well, she wrote a book at 17. I mean, I think it's safe to say she's a little bit different.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's the Marilyn in me who's telling me you can do it. You're great.
Thanks, Mom. You're the best.
Yeah. That moment for me was actually really interesting. I remember I'd just written my second book about millennials, and which someone dared me to do. Again, very competitive. So someone dared me to write a book. And I did.
Of course, I'm going to do it.
I was like, I have to now. and so I had written this book, and I remember I was at this networking event in DC, and this woman asked me what I did. And at the time, I was a fundraiser, and I was just the worst fundraiser ever. I was like, if you want to give, you can. If you don't want to,
that's
seriously,
fine.
No pressure.
It's okay.
It's
I'm
totally
not
okay.
mad at you.
I know. I was just very apathetic. I really should have been fired. So literally 2 years later, I raised $0 at this place. And I had written my book. I'm at this networking event. And this woman said, what do you do? Which is a typical question you ask.
Of course.
Right.
But in that moment, instead of saying what I did, which was fundraise terribly, I said who I was. And so I said, I'm an expert in millennials. Everything in me
light bulb
was like, don't say that. She's going to be like, no, you're not. Or what makes you that? That imposter syndrome trap that a lot of us have.
The worst.
But I just kind of just kept a straight face. And she said, oh my gosh, we could really use you at my organization. I said, okay, cool. Where do you work? She's like, the Navy. It's like, of the United States? And she's like,
did your stomach just drop through your bottom half.
So that was my first client. So I've been on, I think, 8 or 9 different naval bases. And we worked with the Air Force and Joint Warfare Centers. And it's been a really interesting journey. But to that point, why I had confidence is because I knew I was an expert, not because I was 23 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
I hadn't read all the things. I didn't have all the experience, but I knew more than them.
And you were one. You are one.
And that's where I think I'm so passionate about helping people step into their expertise because we have these tracks in our head of, I need to get more degrees.
Yes.
I need to have more years of experience. I need to have someone validate me. I need to have someone invite me up to the C-suite.
It's always external. Why do we always need this external validation?
Right, exactly.
And you're not going to get it. And I think for me in that moment, I realized the power of calling yourself an expert.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't doing it for me. I didn't need it for my own, pep talk or something. I did it for them.
Yeah.
And so you call yourself an expert, not for yourself, but for them. Like if you go and get surgery and the surgeon's like, hey, I'm pretty proficient. I'm not an expert here.
Right.
You're like, all right, doc,
Let's
give
wrap
me
it
a
up.
new
I need
one.
the other one. I need the expert.
I don't know if you believe in like manifesting or just like a positive outlook and all of that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think there's something to be said for that with you as well. You always had this, I can do anything. I can do it. I can. I am. I can.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of manifest goodness in your life when you're constantly putting that out there.
Sure. I mean,
that sounds like you were.
Wasn't always the case. I mean, there's definitely, I think, because I think it's easy to say, oh my gosh, this is where you ended up. And then it makes so much sense. There were so many times where I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because I'm so achievement addicted, I would get to one mountain and then I'd hit depression because I'm like, I don't know what the next mountain is. So I'd be training for a marathon. I got into beauty pageants because I was like, that's fun. I would just pick random things. I'd pick books to write. I mean, so many of the things I did in my 20s was just me trying to achieve something that was drawing me forward versus recognizing clarity on my purpose, which is why we ultimately wrote the book, is because everyone kept saying, find your purpose, find your purpose.
Right.
And no one told us how to.
And you're like, how the heck am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, it's like the best piece of advice to give, but it's the
most
worst
vague.
to get. You're like, what does that mean?
So do you feel like you're still kind of achievement seeking, or have you learned to kind of like
I've really
that
done
down a
a
little
lot of work around it, and I've much calmer because before I had my value based off of like how many business cards that I had, because I was running different organizations at the time and like all these different things. And I think part of that is when you're younger is you think everyone needs you. Yeah. And as you get older, you work hard to make sure no one does.
You're like, that is accurate.
You're like, actually, like, oh, I'll just go out for lunch with my girlfriends. Like, hopefully they don't need me back at the office because I'm going to have a margarita or whatever. We're constantly, as we get older, trying to make ourselves less relevant. And I think when you're younger, because you don't have either confidence or clarity, you're trying to make yourself as relevant as possible.
And you're also trying to figure out, where do I plug in? How do I plug in? How am I relevant?
Totally.
And when you get older, you know.
Yeah.
And you're good in that space. Like I'm 100% comfortable. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Like I think my 40s is the best decade yet.
Yeah.
Just from a confidence and comfort perspective.
Although
I
I will say when she, go ahead.
No, you go.
finish.
I don't even know what I was
Although
gonna say.
I will say when she was saying, that the whole like have to find something new to do, some new challenge, some
That's
new
me.
project, that's 100% you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm like,
That's out of boredom.
yeah.
Like if
She's
I
like,
have
I need
too
a
much
new mountain to
space,
climb.
then I'm like, okay, what now? This is gonna be fun. What can I
Yes,
do?
Totally.
Yeah,
I know. And so sometimes we wait for life to make decisions for us, like the circumstances that we're like, okay, I'm going to have to get pushed into leaving this relationship, leaving this job, trying to figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
And then sometimes like we just pick things because, again, we're bored. And so we just want something to climb. And I think as I've gotten older, I realize how few hours we have on this planet. And so I'm like, I don't really want to spend my life just having hobbies.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible thing to say. But most of us just spend our time thinking our purpose is our hobbies.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, I'm really into this, or I really enjoy doing that, which is fine if that's what you want to do on your free time. But that's not your purpose on this planet. The reason that you're here isn't to be able to, get really good at whatever, app is on your phone. I sound like an alien right now because I don't even know what hobbies are. Like, I'm like, what are the kids doing?
I make money at everything.
I was like, what do people do with their free time? Which is funny when people meet me and my husband, like, what do you guys do for fun? And we just look at each other and we're like,
work.
Yeah. And I mean, sure we do. Like we hang out with people and, we enjoy traveling and stuff and all of that. But it's I think part of it too, my husband had this moment, not to get like deep, but like his grandmother passed away a couple years ago. And he came back and he's just a really deep guy. And he's like, I wonder, we're having breakfast one day. He's like, I wonder how long it takes to live 1% of your life. I'm like, I I don't know. And he's like, okay, Excel spreadsheet time. And so he pulls out his Excel spreadsheet and he looks at, okay, your productive life. So let's not say like you're like 12 or something. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
So from 18 to 78, so 78 is the average age someone in the United States lives to, 7 months is 1% of your life.
Okay. What?
7 months.
That's it.
Like, it's crazy pants.
Right.
And so when you start to think about that, you're like, oh my gosh, like life goes by so quickly. In 7 months, you could meet the love of your life. You could lose 25 pounds. You could start a business. You could start a podcast. Like your life could be in a totally different place. And so I think that perspective, and we have like weird like clocks on our computers of like how many days that we think we have left. We are planning, I know. It's kind of morbid, but it's very, I don't know.
But makes you more advantageous to every situation you walk into. Like
living intentionally, I guess. And
when you have every day, like looking at, okay, we only have so much time on this planet, it just makes you really not only be thankful. I mean, gratitude is a superpower of the successful.
I totally agree with that.
It also, too, just makes you more intentional. Like, I don't really want to watch Netflix all day and do nothing if that's like one day of my 1%.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know, so I think that kind of naturally I've had kind of that purpose drive from a young age. My mom was older. She's 42 when she had me. So,
oh, wow.
So because of that.
42?
Yeah.
Wow. How old was your dad?
Like 41.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they just decided later in life that they wanted to have kids. Okay. And so, which is funny because I'm 32. My husband's parents were 22 when they had him.
Yes. We're the complete opposite. Yeah.
So my mother-in-law's like, all right, like, let's get snapping.
When you're having kids,
I know.
What's going on? Any grandbabies?
I know. And my mom is like, you have all the time in the world. And I'm like, all right, Marilyn, like let's do like a happy
meet in the middle.
Yeah. Like, let's maybe talk about that.
That's funny.
So going back to your parents then, and just in the conversation before we started recording, you mentioned that you've lived in multiple different places. So you were born in California.
Yeah.
Cali.
Yeah.
Totally Cali. California. Yeah. And then, when did you move out of California?
Yeah, so I was born in Portland, but I was there for like 6 months, so that it doesn't really count.
Right.
That's like people who are born abroad. They like really want to tell you that they're born abroad.
God, so me. I'm so that person.
You're like, actually,
I lived in Europe for like 3 years though, so it doesn't really like count.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, I'm like from like the Netherlands. I mean, I was there for like 2 seconds, but
because my dad was in the military, so he was like on a totally Americanized part of the country.
I'm like an army brat.
Yeah,
I'm like,
totally.
Do you know what that means? Yeah, we all know what it means. So I grew up in California, and then I think I was probably 22 or so when life made a choice for me. Sometimes we make choices. And my big aha moment, I think in my 20s, is when I realized I had a choice. Because again, that hamster wheel of achievement, it was like, I'm checking off all the boxes. Like, I've got this great job. And I graduated college in should know this, 10 probably.
Yeah.
And so not exactly an ideal time to be looking for
a job. A career job.
Yeah. Like all my friends were professional baristas, and I was like, okay, I want to get a job. And I did, but I just remember like really feeling like I needed to, keep achieving that next thing. And so when I realized I had a choice, that I could do the thing or not do the thing, that I could work a corporate job or not work a corporate job. I think we have this idea of like, there's only one path for us.
Yeah.
And so if it's not us on that path, then we're off.
I don't think that it's necessarily that we think there's only one path. I think what we look at is there's only one safe path. And so we take the safe path because that's what everyone tells us that we should do. We take the salary, we take the 401k, we take the benefits because
the PTO.
That's the safe path.
Yeah.
If we want to go this route, oh my God, I may not. What if I don't get paid?
It's unpredictable.
What if I don't get
what does that
clients?
mean?
What if, it's that whole fear factor.
Yeah, and I think that COVID really made me realize how addicted to security we are in this country. Because as soon as just the security of having a job or going to a grocery store and not getting sick or having a relationship or having someone that you could, just bop over and like say hi or get your quarter cup of coffee, whatever it was, when that security was taken away, we had just an identity crisis in this country. And I thought it was so interesting that how a lot of times, that normal that we hate, everyone has been trying to return to.
Yes.
The normal commute, the normal job, the normal coworkers, everything that we complained about.
We can count on the consistency.
Well,
that's not scary.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you control it? So my job kind of decided for me. I was in politics. My boss decided to not run for election again. So in the political world, that means you are unemployed.
Exactly.
So I remember having this kind of like mini crisis where like my quarter life crisis. I've had like 7. And
I'm only 32.
Legit, I have. It's a problem. And I just remember being like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
And someone had contacted me out of the blue who had seen me like at some conference or something in DC and said, hey, we're going to start this news station for millennials. Do you want to come in and be a news personality?
Right.
Which was like my dream. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And so I moved to Virginia, sight unseen. I moved to Virginia Beach. I don't know if any of your listeners live in Virginia Beach. Don't love it. So
Sorry.
It's my review. And I landed, and one of the guys who was on this team had been telling everyone we were in a relationship. I had never met him. So I was like meeting people and they're like, it was very strange. He had this giant sign that said like, welcome home, Gabby.
And you've
like,
never met him?
Yeah, maybe in passing or something. And so like the other business partner is a very dear friend of mine. So I trusted him. And it was just this very strange thing. Like he was like taking me around and having me meet everybody and like giving me roses constantly. And I was like, this feels very uncomfortable for a number of reasons. Also like the sign, he like painted leopard spots. I was very into leopard at the time. Like that's another podcast for another time. So I just like all of my bags, everything was super leopard. So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna like, appeal to you. It didn't work out very well. So it was this weird Lifetime movie scenario that you
sounds
moved.
a little creepy.
Stalker, creeper.
Yeah, it was crazy. So so I was in Virginia for maybe like 8 months or something, Virginia Beach, and then headed up to DC and ended up working at that nonprofit that I sucked at. So
that is so cool.
The nonprofit.
So and at no point were you nervous about moving or starting over or starting new things or meeting new people or.
It's kind of funny. I'm a big believer in changing your physical location to change your mental location.
I so agree with this.
Yeah. So I've just been, if I knew I needed to make a change, if I knew I needed to break up with someone, if I knew that I needed to study something different, I would move.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I couldn't move because I couldn't afford it because like your girl was poor, but then I would like go for a drive.
From the fundraiser.
Yeah. Like what part of that did you not get? Like I was so poor that I wore black on Tuesdays and Thursdays because I then went in and I was a hostess at the seafood restaurant in the same building. And so if my boss ever came in with donors, I'd like hide in the kitchen and be like, don't let them see me because I couldn't afford even to work as a fundraiser.
Right.
Like the struggle was real. So it was like this crazy kind of path of like me figuring out again, like back to like me having a choice, realizing, okay, if I'm going to get anywhere, I'm going to have to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And now I crave that like bottom of your stomach feeling of like,
do
this
things
is
that
new.
scare you.
I do too.
If you're not doing things that scare you, how boring is your life, man?
Exactly. Well, that means you're not doing anything.
Yeah. Which like, let's be real. Sounds really good to say.
Sure.
But like
when you get there, you're like,
scary
oh,
things.
Shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even like me walking in here, I'm just like, oh God, like what if I could just like be home right now? Like literally. And I love you guys and this is so fun.
Not only that, but like
that happens to me every time.
Right. And what if we were like creepy? What if we were bitches? What if we were mean? Like what if we were like, set you up? You know what I mean? Like there's all these different things, but then it becomes just like beautiful organic conversation.
Right.
But every time I went to a freaking networking event, I would do the exact same thing.
It happens
I'm like,
to me now to this day.
I do not want to go
where
in
you
there.
just pump yourself up, where you're like,
pep talk.
I have
get
that
out of the
Maryland
car.
voice.
I can do
You've
it.
been working all day. It doesn't matter. Just get out of the car. Something's good. It's going to come from this. I swear it is.
Yeah. So I try and play like on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so I think because I've been a writer for so long, I'm always like, it's a chapter in the book. It's a chapter in the book. So even if it's like a really crappy situation, I'm like, that's going to be a great story someday.
Right.
Which my husband hates when
Look at
we're
you
like
finding
in the middle of
lessons
it.
and everything.
I
I
know.
love it. Well, and I also love what you just said about like changing your physical location to change your mind. So my husband and I have been married 22 years. We have lived in a few houses. We have moved a few times, and it's all me. So I grew up living in 9 states, I guess, total. Not an army brat or military brat, but my dad was in the operations manager or whatever for meatpacking plants, and so we'd always go to different ones. And so we're always moving.
Oh man, so you went to like real rural
so it was like
towns.
super ingrained in me. Well, then I become an adult, and I'm in the same place for 3 years, and I'm like, I need a reboot.
Time to
We
move.
got to go somewhere. And if I can't, and honestly, the first 10 years of my career, I changed my job.
Yeah.
Even like my career a few times because I just needed a reboot. I needed something new, something scary, something challenging.
But every single time you moved or every time you changed the job, you brought that lesson and that education with you to the next place?
It was always leveling up. It was always a step up, always. Yeah. I mean, it was never a lateral situation, but it was always going to put me in a scary situation that was going to challenge me, teach me something new, do something different. And now I've been in the same place for 3 years, same house for 5 years, and I mean, talk about the itch.
We're getting close.
She's getting ready.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. I'm like, I'm ready to go to Florida.
Let's go.
I need something new.
Florida.
When it gets too safe and too consistent and too regimented, I'm like,
we're good.
I need something.
Well, because incremental change is really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, like, think about like dieting or focusing. It's like, oh, I'll just not eat this today.
Right.
Which people try and tell you that's easier. But in fact, it's a lot easier to change completely.
Yes.
So if you go through a breakup, then you move physically because you're not having that trigger of, oh my gosh, like this was, our kitchen that we would hang out in. Or, you change something completely when it comes to like your job. You have that physical location and you're not coming home to the same place.
Well,
so there's
every
something.
move too, you get to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. So things that
write your own story.
Maybe you didn't love about your story and in the old situation, you can just completely leave that out.
Yeah.
I know.
Bye, we're done with that part.
Yeah.
We're done with that
We
now.
just won't talk about that.
We're just done with that thing.
Yeah, no, and it is really interesting kind of like how that journey goes. And so, that's something that I just kind of naturally learned. And so when I moved to Virginia, it was like, okay, I am starting over and I'm doing this on my own terms.
Yeah.
And I always knew that that's how it was going to kind of go. I didn't want to live in my small town anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Sacramento isn't exactly a super small town, but for me, it felt like it. But I'll always remember, and I have this card framed in my office to this day. I had a girlfriend of mine who she's like, I'm really bad at goodbyes. Here's this card, and like left. I'm like, I love it. All of my friends are dead inside, so we are like not emotional people. And
she is my people.
She is 100%. I'm the crybaby. You guys are like, no.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I don't like ever cry. I have to watch sad movies to make sure I'm like still.
Did you even cry at your daughter's wedding? No.
Oh, yeah. I thought I was going to. Like
She's like, I
had a moment in the car that day where I
Yeah.
thought I'm going to actually cry today.
Yeah.
Nope. But then I didn't.
Not even
Yeah,
a
do
little
you
bit.
ever do that where you just like look at yourself like I can do this, like muster some human emotion?
For sure.
Yeah. I've convinced people that I had my tear ducts removed, and they're like, "Oh, is that a thing?" And like, it's a very
Is that why you don't cry?
It's a
you
very
soulless
complicated
woman.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so I have to say this really quickly or I will forget. At the wedding, my daughter and her husband now they didn't write the song. They sang the song 1,000 Years and recorded it. And that's what she was supposed to walk down the aisle to. And the whole thing was she was going to walk down. They would meet at the end and they would stand there while everyone got to hear them sing the song. Well, the dumb lady, the DJ cuts it off like right when she gets up there. And so in the middle of the ceremony, no, I'm not crying. I'm not watching my beautiful daughter.
I'm pissed.
Join her. I look at the DJ and like, oh my God, I hate people. Like,
just jump up.
And
Can everybody do their jobs around here?
I mean,
Literally. I heard her walking down the aisle. She's like, it's not loud enough. It's not loud enough.
I'm like
People
looking at
can't
the lady
hear
going,
this.
come on, turn it up, turn it up. And then I'm sitting there and I look at the lady. I'm like, oh, I hate people. And my older daughter, who's one of the bridesmaids, looks at me and she's like,
Mom, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
And all the photos, you're gonna have that crazy eye.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like,
That's so funny.
That's
Okay, so
the
off
eye.
topic. Sorry.
I don't remember what we were
I
talking
don't
about.
either. This is what we do.
I don't either, but it's all good. I love it. I don't care. This episode is actually brought to our listeners by Podcorn.
Yes.
Yes. So
Our first official sponsor.
I know.
So cool.
Shapiro and I have talked about monetizing this podcast since
Day one.
we started. But
Before we started.
since before we started. And I was I went to Google and I was just trying to find the simplest way to find companies that would partner with our brand, which
Right.
is, we have a brand now.
We do have a brand.
We have a brand.
Yeah.
Big Girl Pants Podcast is our brand.
it is.
Yeah. So finding companies that would align with things that we liked, things that we supported, brands that we supported, brands that, had the same similar beliefs as we did, which ironically, this episode is talking all about millennials. So
Yes, it was.
and aligning with beliefs and all that stuff. So yeah, we found Podcorn.
You found Podcorn.
I found Podcorn, and we pitched to them, and they were the first company to bite at our pitch, and they are now our official sponsor. So if you know anybody who has a podcast or is into podcasting or knows someone that has a podcast that wants to monetize their podcast, I would definitely send them to Podcorn.
Absolutely. And the options are insane.
Limitless.
Oh my gosh.
I get emails every
You can
day.
literally scroll and scroll and scroll, searching for a partner that makes sense for your podcast or for your brand.
Yes.
So definitely check them out.
I get update emails every day, like 7 new sponsorship opportunities, 8 new sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah.
And they actually will say too in the boxes, like the demographic that they're looking for. So they're looking to partner with women of the age of 25 to 35.
Yeah,
that
you
shop
can
at
break
Whole
it down.
Foods.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's filters. And there's an app. You can obviously go to the website, but there is an app as well.
Yep.
So
you can just upload your information and all that stuff, which actually this week I want to see how effective your pitches are with new companies.
Okay.
So if you want to take that on this week, that would be cool.
You got it. Do I have to record?
No, you don't have to do anything.
Okay.
I'll show you how to do it.
Cool.
It's that easy.
I love it.
User easy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn something.
But yes, definitely. If you know anybody or have any friends that have a podcast, or you're thinking about starting a podcast and you want to recoup some of the costs, because this is definitely not free for us, send them to podcorn.com or tell them to download the app.
Absolutely.
So I want to get to essentially, like, clearly you've kind of built up the story about your past and all that stuff, but I want to kind of talk about what it means to be a millennial expert and how, and I don't want you to work for free, okay? No free labor, that's not a thing here. But I want you to tell our listeners how you help these organizations to understand millennials. Like, because I am one.
Yeah.
But I also think, and maybe you and I are in the same boat, where like the work ethic for us is definitely there. And I don't want to say assimilating to workplace culture or assimilating to what used to be, and we understand that that's how it is now.
Sure.
Because there's differentiators that are like, I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to do this going forward. And that started with our generation.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people could benefit from understanding the difference, and like how it's funny because we both work in staffing and recruiting. So we're finding people for these companies that have an antiquated thought process around hiring and workplace culture.
Antiquated.
Oh, yeah.
It's
And
a
they're
slow
like,
transition, man.
literally the question was from one of my clients, benefits just don't matter anymore, do they? And I was like, what a beautiful question. No, they really don't. Like they just kind of factor it into something that they're going to have to pay for. That's kind of, it is what it is. But it's like, at the end of the day, if you're making a move and if you're moving into a new position, it's honestly about what you have to offer me and how much you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
Well, an
Like,
opportunity. I think that's a big one.
opportunity for advancement is big too, but it's like money is still such a big factor.
For sure.
Like I don't really care if you have snacks
Well,
in the
time.
break room, bro.
They want to make
Like,
sure they're not going to be
I
working
know.
12 hours a day and selling their soul.
Yeah.
I know.
They want to be able to travel, and they want to be able to, maybe take a half a Friday off and, go out of town or
and
whatever.
not get the stank eye if you want to take some PTO.
It's not about FaceTime.
Right.
With millennials for sure.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because we've seen, so when I got into it, and I'm like in the median age of millennials, which I think is kind of interesting. So I'm not like the youngest, but I'm like almost an elder millennial. So like I still get to complain a little bit.
Schlesinger.
Yes. Yeah. And like it's enough that I get it. But like I have a middle part today. I'm trying really hard to be relevant.
Oh my God. Me too. Okay,
trying.
I'm going to stand up real quick and then I'm going to show you guys why I'm standing up.
Wait, what?
Yeah, hold on.
Middle part?
Yeah.
That's a bad thing or a good
No,
thing?
it's like a
doing a
Gen
turn.
Z
Doing
thing.
a turn.
Yeah.
Okay, I probably blocked off this part of the camera, but
Yeah.
so not only do I have a middle part today, but I was like, I think I'm going to try like this baggy mom jean thing and then like a t-shirt, and like I'm trying to be like younger than I really am.
with the middle part.
It's
Because
a
they
thing.
basically came out like 2 weeks ago and they said, not 2 weeks ago, but it feels like it was 2 weeks ago. Skinny jeans are no longer in.
Yeah.
Middle parts are the new thing.
Yeah.
And then like this baggy
t-shirt.
t-shirt 90s style is now back.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Literally my thought process
The
as I
beautiful
was
thing
getting ready
about being
today.
45 is you can say, well, F it.
I don't care.
I'm going to wear what I
don't
wanna
care.
wear.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to wear what I want to wear.
It's a thing. It's so funny because my husband and I were in Austin last weekend, and we've like never felt more old going to Austin. We're like, where are these children's parents? And like just like the clothing, and we have like all of the opinions about
Yeah,
it.
oh, yeah,
It's
for
so
sure.
funny.
Yeah.
And I was like,
the fact that people on TikTok are celebrities now, I don't even know who they are. Who
Yeah.
are they? Who are you? I don't even know who you are.
yeah, but that's like with millennials, it was like these YouTube celebrities.
Yeah, that's true.
That
Yeah.
like you'll see them in like the airport and you're like, oh, that's so and so. And they're just like average Joe. I went to some millennial leader meeting a couple weeks ago, and like half of the people introduced themselves as influencers. And I made that face that you just made right now. I was like, so your mom still pays your phone bill?
Right.
Like,
So how does that work?
So that's what that means.
Great.
yeah, I was like, oh, interesting. But it's funny because they all kind of laughed that they called themselves influencers. And I was like, well, at least you appreciate the irony that you went to college and you're now an influencer. No offense to anybody who's like on your, like in your audience, like, I'm an influencer. Like, are you adding value to people? That's all the market cares about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that value could be like how to do makeup or how to change your car oil or doing funny videos.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. And that's kind of come full circle why I became this millennial expert is because before no one really cared about generations. It was like kids are kids and work is work.
Yeah.
And like
Life is life. We
Kids,
just do what you do.
Midlife, old people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
yeah. And it's like kids these days and everybody complained about them.
Right.
And then because millennials are the largest generation ever and we came in not only with opinions because your generation had opinions too. It's just there's more of us.
Right.
And so because of that, when we stomp our foot and we're like, no, we don't want to, the market changes. Versus Gen X is 1/3 the size of the millennials.
Yeah.
Right? So most people don't realize that. And so staffing and recruiting, you guys probably see this all the time, is there's a huge leadership gap.
Yeah.
Like there just aren't people in mid-management. And because boomers are waiting so long to retire, there's no upward trajectory. So Xers are going out on their own because they're like, this is a total crapshoot. I've been waiting to get into leadership for 10 years and it's
15.
my turn.
Right.
You know,
and it's time to retire now. So make room for other people.
But baby boomers have so much of their personality and identity in their job, or they started it. And so there's like this founder mindset. And then millennials, we all think we should be CEOs anyway. And so we're coming in and bypassing.
We're like, I'm the CEO of my life.
Well, and that's why I was mentioning the opportunity, you know, it's not about benefits, but the first thing I hear all the time is there room for growth?
Right.
Yes, but you just graduated. Can you give it some time? This is going to be your second job ever in your life.
Yep.
So,
but it's back to expectations. That's the big thing I always teach, like context, expectations, and personal leadership. Because my generation was taught, oh yeah, well, like Zuckerberg did it, so you can go run out and do your own thing, or girl boss, or all this stuff.
Right.
So, and I just did a post on my Instagram the other day how I literally called myself a CEO and I had 0 employees. Like, stop doing that.
Oh my God, I read that post and I was like,
stop it. I did it for years.
Yeah.
Though, because that was my identity. That I was like this girl boss, whatever, and like no shame for the game. But I did it because I wanted to be seen as something.
Yeah.
Versus just, again, back to value. And I think now as you get older and running 2 companies, I'm like, no, I want to be known as someone who provides real value.
Right. Yes.
Like, that's it. Like, I want to change people's lives. I want to help people make money, save money, or both.
Exactly.
Like, that's
well, that
what I
goes
want
back
to
to
get
like
paid
you
to
were
do.
saying, that I always have to have my hands in something and I'm always trying to create or do something.
Yeah.
But it's always something that in some way, form or fashion, is going to add value to somebody's life. It's not just outside of my master's degree. I get that was just for me. But other than that, like other things,
that's an achievement, man. That's a big deal.
Well, right. But that was 100% just for me. Right. But everything else, it's like, no, I want something that's going to be beneficial, add value. It's going to be impactful to other people.
You want to give back.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Which is what, if you're an employee or an entrepreneur, you need to be obsessed with.
Yeah.
And employees, and this is something we teach our team members, is, okay, you're going to get paid more when you add more value. That's how this works. So adding more value to the team so that they can do their job better, adding more value to our customers, our community, then you're going to get paid more. There's going to be more room for growth in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think Tony Robbins says it, maybe he took it from someone else, but he talks about how you always have to be giving and growing.
Yeah.
And those 2 elements have to be there. So that's why you're not happy in your current job. That's why you're bored.
Yeah.
That's why you're Googling, maybe I should get into real estate, because you're like, I'm not growing. I'm not mentally being challenged. I'm not learning. I'm not discovering new things about myself or others. And that information I'm learning, I'm not giving to anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough just to learn. You can be a genius in a tiny little room and not
By
be
yourself.
fulfilled.
Exactly. Yes.
You have to give what you have to other people.
100%.
And so teams that do that really well, it's not just a millennial thing. That's kind of my big aha over doing this for like 13 years and studying millennials, is we all want to be motivated, but we all have things that stand in our way. And we all want to know that, number one, we matter and what we do matters.
Right.
That's the giant bond between all of us. And so that's kind of where we started to get into the purpose space, because we recognized, and we started working with major companies on helping their employees find purpose.
Yeah.
And then we realized it wasn't just companies that wanted to find their purpose.
People.
It was people.
That's
And
right.
so that's why we started the Purpose Company.
So before, I want to talk a little bit more about that book, because that book has been, would you say that's your most successful book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before that, I want you to
like
list.
The Rock endorsed that one.
we saw
He hasn't
that.
endorsed the rest of my books yet.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
Waiting, Dwayne.
Ellipses. But yeah, so take us through the books that you've written, and then we'll get back to the purpose.
Yeah. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, the other ones aren't really that interesting. I mean, I love them, but yeah, like, maybe that's like mean. Like,
Maybe
do you have
because, like, I
favorite
wrote
kids?
them, I don't know.
I definitely have favorite kids. It's the purpose factor for
Just
sure.
for the record, she has no children yet. Just saying.
That's true. Yeah,
Your
that's
books are
true.
your babies, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a problem. But yeah, it's and also too, when you're writing, I don't know, are you guys thinking about writing a book?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
This one.
I was like, I can tell.
Yeah.
Like you and I are like on the same page.
Yeah.
I get it. Sorry, dad joke.
Honey, book joke.
Although I'm 45 and have not started one page, you are 6 books in at 32. Carry on.
Yeah, well, it's just jumping into it, but it's funny because I was talking to one of my students who's finishing her book, and it's kind of like women who like being pregnant. Again, I've never been pregnant, so this is just from what I hear. She's just enjoying the writing process so much she doesn't want to finish the book.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got to deliver the baby, okay?
Yeah,
like,
right.
and-
It's got to come out at some
yeah,
time.
like writing a book is hard. Getting people to read it is harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've written like 5 Millennial Myths, which was focused on managing and leading millennials and how millennials can manage and lead themselves. So it's kind of interesting. I wrote The Millennial Entrepreneur because I was starting a business and I wanted to know, how are we starting businesses and how is it different? What are our values?
Yeah.
Because I think so many young people are working for companies and they're like, you know what? I don't like the values of this company. They
Right.
don't align with my own.
Yeah.
I don't trust these executives to do the right
That is
job.
a millennial thing. My generation, boomers, they didn't even think about it. We
Yeah.
didn't even ask
think
them,
my
what are your
thing-
values? Nobody cared.
Right.
And now it's a thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's
like the
100%
value
a
is
thing.
I'm
Yeah.
getting paid.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it was very transactional.
Yes.
And now it's much more transformational.
Yes.
Like, are we partnering together to make this
Yes.
world better?
Right.
And not only that, I think that millennials, and maybe this goes for everyone, I'm not sure. I don't think that boomers saw it the same. And especially when I see people who are a little bit older than me that have been doing this for a while, did they not see how much money they're bringing in and then what they're taking home?
Yeah.
I'm like, is this a real thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm supposed to be happy with that or what?
I mean, the values I think are so different too, that we've got a younger generation that cares more about access than ownership. So it's like, I don't really need to have the vacation home. I have Airbnb, or I don't really need to have like the tools. I'll just do a tool share. I mean, everything we have, we now can access.
Yeah.
Versus just owning it, which for them, that was a sign of making it.
Yes.
You know, it was like, you have the pool.
Buying
Now-
a home, getting the pool, having the fancy car, all of it. I'm like,
All
bro,
of
I
it.
can rent a Lamborghini. What's up?
I know. Exactly. I know. And our generation's like, why did our parents spend so much money on that? But it was status.
Yeah.
And for us, our status is freedom.
Yes.
Our status is experience. Like, oh, hey, I'm in Dubai, or oh, hey, I'm in Mexico, or hey, and it's the shared experience of what we at least project.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we're really good at personal branding ourselves
Yeah.
as like
100%.
being, hashtag.
We have a highlight reel.
Yeah,
That's
whatever.
what my Instagram is.
I know. And I get frustrated when people criticize my generation for that. I'm like, it just as if someone was giving you a standing ovation.
Yes.
It's the same part of your brain that gets a hit when you get a like, a share, or a DM.
It's a dopamine
Like,
hit.
it's
It's
just-
like a drug.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
like, and like, you get it too. Like,
Right.
Don't
Don't get it twisted. You just get it in other
I know. I'm
avenues.
like, that's why the number one generation on Facebook is boomers. It's like, y'all got real addicted, okay? And like,
and
we
you
left.
like to type a novel, okay? I like to post a picture on Instagram. Let's be real.
I know.
Funny.
My mom sometimes will be like, so what have you been up to today? She's like, oh, I'm just posting on Facebook.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
just one post. Took her 2 hours. I'm not kidding. Like, Marilyn, and she'd like just like tink, 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 like the two finger type. So she's written a couple books too, and it takes her like 7 years to write them. Love you,
That's
Mom. Hope you're
wow.
listening. But yeah. We're working on the flow. So yeah, so then I wrote one on employee engagement, keep them longer. That was kind of interesting, and then that kind of flew into the purpose factor.
Okay.
And we had written the purpose factor under a different name and given it to our book agent 2 years before.
Okay.
And he had taken it to New York and was like, oh my gosh, I think this is going to do so well, and got rejected by over 59 different publishers. And I was on a podcast not long ago, and they're like, that's amazing. You kept going after all of that rejection. I was like, no, I didn't. Like, I believe in the market, and the market said, nope, we don't want it.
Right.
And so either it wasn't ready or we weren't ready. I think it was the second one. And so we finished Keep Them Longer, which was just focused on the subtitle is Gain, Train, and Retain Top Talent. After we finished that, we got a call from our agent who said, hey, I was at this dinner and I talked you guys up to this publisher, and he's really interested. And so then we had 2 publishers after us, which was really interesting. So it was one of those things that we knew we had to be ready because the message was beyond just, before I was writing very specific strategic books, like, hey, you're a manager, read this book,
Right.
which I feel very comfortable doing.
Yeah.
The purpose factor was scary because I'm like, this is people's lives.
Right.
Like, people read this book and they change jobs or they get out of bad relationships. And like, we get DMs every day from people reading the book and they're like, oh my gosh, I never knew I was already in my purpose. And now I know how to call on that fulfillment.
And like maximize it.
Yeah, or they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, I thought I wanted to get into interior design, but really I want to become a life coach for single moms. So we're getting these really interesting stories all the time from people. And so kind of having that awareness and responsibility of when you write something down, it can change people's lives.
That's like Jordan Peterson. He talks about that all the time, how he had like no idea that the things that he was going to write or talk about was going to have such an impact on someone. And he was like, I think that's what not only changed his life so much, but like really drove him from just writing 12 Rules for Life to now writing an entire other book about other things that you can do to improve your life.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but you can't start off with that. So I call it pundit theory because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I need to be an expert at everything because I'm passionate about all these things.
Yeah.
I talk about it in the book all the time. Passion is the worst advice to follow.
Yeah.
Like, what you're passionate about, like the dictionary definition of passion is a barely controllable emotion.
Right. So how do you harness that?
Yeah, exactly.
Legit.
And go
like, no one's
somewhere
like,
with it?
I have a barely controllable emotion for history. No, you don't. Okay. Like, you just like reading old war novels. Like, so following your passion is a really great way to get bored easily. And that's why we have, bored and broke.
Yeah.
It's just the worst advice. And I know I had followed that as well because that's what everyone kept telling our generation is be passionate, be passionate. If you're not passionate, you need to leave.
Right.
Well, passion wears off.
But that's what leads to divorces and bankruptcies and everything else. Like, let's be, passion is a fleeing emotion. Like, you can only have it for so long.
Well, it's like motivation. It's the same thing.
It only drives you for so long.
Yeah, and if you don't know what you're doing it for, which is purpose. And so purpose is what you have inside of you to help other people.
Yeah.
And so it has to be others focused. And passion is about me, me, me.
Yeah.
And when you make it about you, you're not fulfilled. You don't really like you.
Yeah.
And you're just going to get bored. And so if you make it about other people, that's that fulfillment loop that actually becomes super addictive.
Yes.
Because you're like, oh my gosh, I just helped this person with this thing, or I just created this product, or I had this podcast and people reach out to me and say, wow, it really helped me. So that process that we were using to help employees find purpose at work, we then just created a general version of it for anyone, whether they're a student or a stay-at-home mom or retired, could follow these steps in a really systematic way. There's 4 different steps that we lead people through of how do you find your purpose and then how do you apply it.
Right. Yeah.
Because so many people are like, oh, I found my purpose. And then they're not doing anything with it.
What are you doing with it?
Yeah. So it then turns into a hobby. And so it's nights and weekends of them feeling like they're making a difference while they slug it out at work, which is just a crazy way to live.
Totally.
Agreed. What's the demographic of people who buy your book? Is it mostly millennials, would you say?
It's not. It's interesting. It's mostly, and we did a lot of research because I'm a deep nerd. So I don't like just saying things that I'm like, I think this is true. Although I've been accused of saying that. I do like researching things. And so we did over 500 different interviews with people who were between the ages of 30 and 45 and looking at, okay, what was stopping them from using their purpose? What did they think about purpose? What ideas did they have about what their life looked like if they were living on purpose? And interestingly enough, what they all said was that they all wanted freedom.
Yeah.
It was freedom from a bad boss, from a bad relationship, from a bad job. They wanted financial freedom. And what they all said, pretty much what was holding them back was fear of failure.
Oh, for sure.
And I thought it was so interesting. Some people said like fear of success, which to be honest, at first I was like, okay, that's such a lame excuse.
No, but it's a thing. Absolutely.
But it's back to that when things aren't secure. So being successful can be just as scary as failing because you're not in control.
And also more money, more problems.
Well, and I think too, even deeper when
And if
you
you've
ask,
never seen, if
you're
you've never
fine.
seen what success could potentially be,
For sure.
you don't know how to manage that.
Yeah.
Or like if, let's say, your parents were, middle class or poor.
Or am I worthy?
And
Like,
your
am I worthy of
grandparents
this?
And,
Yeah.
And then the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, for sure. But I wonder when you ask somebody, like, why are you not living your purpose? I would assume most people are like, well, because I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and which goes back to just the bad advice that we all give college graduates or people in transition or people after divorces is find your purpose, which everyone kept giving to myself and my husband, Brian, who we wrote the book together. And it was our own kind of individual journey of recognizing that purpose can be discovered and that there's a process for discovering it and applying it that completely changed the game for us.
Yeah. Do you think there's too, like, just a mindset shift too? Like, you could be maybe, and I'm in corporate America, so I'm just going to go with that. But I've loved almost every single job I've ever had, and I just think it's because I'm a true optimist, sometimes to a fault. But through that optimism, I find ways to love what I'm doing and to kind of become an expert and to figure out, okay, this is what I'm doing. So how can I be the best at this so that I can help other people in whatever capacity, right?
Totally.
Well, when you have somebody who is maybe not an optimist, maybe, I don't know, like my husband, and they hate their job, and it's not because their job is horrible, but because they're not, a rock star traveling the country, I don't know.
He's really talented. He should do more music.
But it's just funny. I wonder if there is more. It's just your perspective and your lack of gratitude in where you are and what your place or where you are in whatever place you are in your life. And just saying, I'm thankful for where I am. I'm thankful for my lessons. I'm thankful for the things that I effed up. I'm thankful for every experience that I've ever had because it has made me who I am.
Yep.
And I think people lack that. So all they can see is what they don't like and why they're unhappy, and they can't see the beauty in their life, and therefore
they're never satisfied. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that that's finding your purpose necessarily, but I think if you are more optimistic and if you do have gratitude, you could find purpose and right where you are, where you're standing.
I think that goes back to like you said too in the beginning, like the way you were raised and what kind of outlook your parents had too. Because I mean, if you think about it, if all you're getting is this realism or pessimism when you're growing up, that's your internal tapes.
Well, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I feel the exact same way about my job. Like I absolutely love my job, and I find that I become more successful the more that I help people. And I'm helping people find jobs. Like that's like one of the most impactful things that you could do for somebody.
I love mine too. I do get bored. I mean, if I find that things are steady, then I got to go find something to shake it up a little bit.
A new challenge.
Like right now I'm building a training because I'm like, I got to do something different because it can't be the same thing every day for me.
Right.
But I'm finding new things right where I am, right? So I just wonder if maybe finding your purpose doesn't have to be as challenging or difficult as people think it is.
Or dramatic.
Or dramatic. It doesn't have to be, I'm quitting my job and I'm moving to Bali.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, let's not necessarily eat, pray, love our way into finding purpose,
because in Eat, Pray, Love, she got a lot of money to write that book. So like, you got to have that too.
It's true. And there's not this perfect moment. And I think that's why we don't change is because we're waiting for that weekend where we have nothing to do. And that's the weekend we're going to finally look into our purpose.
Or it has to be this dramatic change, right? And I don't think it has to be that big.
Yeah. The biggest part about it is the perspective shift.
Agreed.
And so you're doing the same thing, but who you're helping and more clarity that you have around it, I think is really important. And very much to your point, every single person, no matter you're a barista or the president, every single person is helping other people.
Yeah.
You just don't know how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if you don't have that connection point, like I was speaking at this conference and this head of tech for the California Highway Patrol told me the story of he was working on a Saturday one day, went outside, saw that there was a tech working on the tower. The tech came down, they're just talking, said, "Hey man, just want to say thank you so much for working. You're doing a great job." And then the guy said, "Can I ask you a question?" And the CTO was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." And the tech said, "Yeah, it was take your parent to work day, and my kid came home and said, 'Hey dad, does what you do matter?'" And the CTO asked this tech, like, "Well, what did you say?" And the tech said, "I told her I didn't know." And this chief technology officer said, well, what do you mean you don't know? Like, you work on these towers, and if someone calls 911, it goes through this tower. And if you don't do your job, then like people's lives are at risk.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a silver alert or there's an accident or something happened, like what you do matters.
Yeah.
And like they both started kind of tearing up because so oftentimes even something as kind of manual as being a tech who's working on a tower is still making a difference.
That's right. Just recognizing your impact and being able to
But also
sit
being
back.
recognized for what you're doing.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we have to find that internally. We can't just wait for other people to give us that validation.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Get a Marilyn. It's just like, you're the best.
And I think that stems from leadership too. Like, hey, it doesn't have to be a daily, like, you are so important and we couldn't run this company without you.
Sure.
But like companies acknowledging that they're grateful for their staff, or like the CTO saying you do matter. I mean, how many C-level guys are going to go out to their, frontline workers and just be like,
You matter.
right, who's going from Walmart to go talk to the cashier?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, it's true. And so, but again, whose responsibility is it? Like, that's a nice to have, not a need to have.
True.
So if you're an employee, and I'm very much the same way, every job I've had, even the ones that I sucked at, I still liked.
Yeah.
Because I'm a natural optimist. Or I'm like, it's okay. Like, I get to wear cute shoes to work today.
Exactly.
Like, I just,
I will
whatever.
find something to love.
Whatever it is, because that's just energy I don't have.
Yeah.
I can't.
I don't have time for that negative
and
energy.
I think being raised in trauma, like, I just was so used to, okay, if this sucks, just ignore it, move on to the next thing.
Same.
So you compartmentalize.
I wasn't raised in trauma, but my parents were, if they're listening, I just don't want to hurt their feelings, but they were almost like childlike. They were partiers. They were the fun people. They were always, they were never the, let me see your report card. They were never, there was never any accountability whatsoever.
Which can be super fun.
It can, but it also made me, I think, why I'm so type A and why I'm so structured, right? Because I craved that and I needed that so desperately. So, so it wasn't traumatic per se, but it definitely formed me. It definitely impacted who I am.
Yeah. And I think just that awareness, kind of to come full circle, is a superpower.
Yeah.
Because when you can recognize whether it's a trigger or why you do what you do, you're more equipped to help people.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer, like, if I only have a few minutes with someone to talk to them about their purpose, it's talking about what is it that you've overcome that you can help other people overcome.
Right. So good.
That's so good. We're ending there.
That's a great place to end.
That's a perfect place to end. I had absolutely no idea that this episode was going to be this way, but I'm so happy that you came.
So
like this has like been really, really, really good.
Well, I don't think anybody would be shocked to hear that I'll be buying your book.
I will be buying all of your books.
I'm
actually,
so
Thank
excited
you.
to get it.
Yes.
So excited. Thank you for sharing your Saturday with us.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
You're for sure coming back. Oh,
I would love to.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Yes.
We can talk about the leopard.
Yeah. Like, why did you have?
We're not talking about the
why
leopard.
did you
What's that
have
about?
so
No,
much
but seriously
leopard?
though, thank you so much for coming. I both of us like recruit for the episodes and for like people that we want to talk to. And honestly, I think that the organic approach is probably the best. So like whenever I see somebody that I think would be interesting, and when I saw your LinkedIn profile and I saw there was either something that you were commenting on or a post that you made or something, and I was like, man, I really want to talk to her. And I was like, oh shit, she's in Dallas. Yes. Come hang out with us.
Totally.
But we've had some really, really impactful and transformative conversations with people that I literally had never even met. And we have great guests that we've met that we've built
100%.
relationships with and all that stuff
Become
too.
friends,
But this episode is definitely top 10.
100%.
I would say maybe even top 5. Like,
yeah, can't wait to have you
That's a
back.
big deal.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
So
well, it's such a inspiration for everybody who's listening. That's the biggest thing is like spreading the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for coming.
Well, tell people how to find you.
Yes.
Yeah, so they can hang out with us. So we have a free community where we do free training on how to find your purpose and how to apply it called 7figurepurpose.com that your audience can go and check out and hang out with Brian and I. You can pick up the book at purposefactorbook.com or
Amazon. Okay.
Barnes & Noble,
Can
Target,
we buy all your books on
things.
Amazon?
Yes.
Okay,
cool.
Great. I mean, you can buy everything on Amazon.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
bought paint on Amazon last night.
Great.
Because I
All the
didn't want to go
things.
to Lowe's.
Yeah.
What are you painting?
So back to hobbies. I'm trying real hard, guys.
All right.
And so
What are those?
yeah, I know. I'm like, wait, crap. Be a human. So I started painting again. So I did that in college.
Okay.
And it's more functional. Like, I don't want to spend $5,000 for the restoration hardware art that I want.
Yeah,
and
so
so
you can make it.
I mimic it. Yeah, so I've done some pretty cool stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, my assistant was like, yeah, your art's really cool. Like, I think, like, I would totally buy it at IKEA. And I was like, that is a huge compliment from someone who's 24. So
That is.
I'd buy that at
that's
IKEA.
where they buy stuff.
Yeah, I was like, like maybe a little more expensive than IKEA, like maybe Barnes & Noble.
Can I get a Crate and Barrel?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, can I get like a Pottery Barn?
Right.
Like, let's just Pottery Barn Kids. I will settle for that. Like,
That's
just
greatness.
a little
Oh my
bit.
God, I love it. Yes, thank you so much for coming. So you can find us www.biggirlpantspod.com. We're on all the social media channels, platforms at Big Girl Pants Podcast. I think that's
Yes.
it.
Please subscribe.
Oh yeah,
Visit,
like, subscribe, and leave us a comment and a
please,
review.
a review.
Yes.
We love reviews.
Love reviews.
5 stars. Even if you didn't love it, it's fine.
5 stars. That's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.